Hi and welcome to this fifth video in the series on executive coaching. I'm Harry Petropoulos, one of the founding directors of a company called Red Pill Performance Consultants, which is an executive coaching business founded in 2004 with offices in Sydney and in Perth. In this video, I'm going to take you through talking about the qualities to look for in an executive coach, in an executive coaching assignment. You may recall in an earlier video, I talked about coaching qualifications. And while I said coaching qualifications are indeed important, on their own, coaching qualifications are probably never enough to distinguish the exceptional coaches from the more average coaches. So if you're considering hiring an executive coach, what should you be looking for? What are the qualities that should be standing out? I guess the starting point for any coach selection process should always be a thorough needs analysis. What does the person seeking the coaching or their sponsoring organisation want to achieve through executive coaching? Is a challenge skill, performance, developmental or remedial in nature? One of the things that I often find sponsors of executive coaching programs still get wrong is pitching a coaching assignment to prospective coaches as perhaps leadership development, when in reality the assignment may be more remedial in nature. So my suggestion would be that if you're a sponsor of executive coaching programs, you need to be upfront with both the coachee in the program and their potential coaches in relation to the goals of the program and the basis upon which the intervention is framed. I guess in my experience, organisations aren't always clear on the objectives of an executive program or whether indeed executive coaching is the most appropriate intervention for a particular situation. So as coaches, we're sometimes in privileged positions to help organisations clarify their goals and help identify optimal pathways going forward. And this sometimes means that as a coach, you may need to recommend that coaching may not be the best solution for a particular situation. You've got to recommend that even if it means walking away from a potentially lucrative assignment. It reminds me, in our early days as Red Pill Performance Consultants, like any new business, we took on just about every assignment we get our hands on without necessarily qualifying the assignments. But in more recent times, we've become a bit more selective, and we probably turn down about 20% of all invitations to coach these days. So why is this important? Well, I guess like all new businesses, the commercial imperative tends to reign supreme, particularly when you're starting off. But what we didn't realise as a coaching business years ago was the reputational damage and sometimes the personal dislocation and personal distress caused to our coaches by the company accepting assignments that involved either coaching executives who had a personality disorder, for instance, or agreeing to have our coaches supplant the role of managers who abdicated their leadership responsibility. In my mind, there's always a clear difference between delivering the kind of feedback to a coachee that no one else in the organisation could deliver with sensitivity and respect, versus delivering standard performance feedback that's really the role of the leader to meter out. I guess one of the things I've learned over the past 10 years has to do a lot with what we psychologists refer to as delayed gratification. And in this case, one of the key executive coaching imperatives is the need to always remain focused on the executive's needs rather than on the coach's own personal or business development needs. In other words, I guess what I'm suggesting is that if you can resist the temptation to take on poorly structured assignments, refrain from working with uncoachable clients, or even clients that you just don't like, and if you can put the needs of the sponsoring organisation above your own commercial interests, your business will probably grow and you'll enjoy working in the industry as an executive coach immensely. So assuming the sponsoring organisation has carefully articulated the goals for its coaching program, and assuming in this case the executive coaching model is indeed the most appropriate intervention, what should the sponsor of the program and the person receiving the coaching look for in a coach in terms of qualities? Standard Australia's handbook called Coaching Organisations has a useful section called Exploratory Questions for Coach Selection, which I would highly recommend. This section of the handbook suggests questions you should ask potential coaches regarding, for instance, their formal education, including any coach-specific training they might have picked up along the way. It suggests questions you could ask about the coach's professional development, whether they, for instance, submit to peer review and undergo supervision. It talks about their theoretical orientation and models that inform their coaching practice, their coaching experience, their industry experience, questions in relation to accreditation and assessment instruments, their business experience and commercial acumen, even their affiliation with specific coaching industry bodies, and whether they're bound by any particular code of ethics, and even to the point of asking whether they maintain appropriate levels of professional indemnity and public liability insurance. Now, this is all good stuff and a good starting point for coach selection, but these questions alone won't necessarily guarantee you'll be able to distinguish the exceptional coaches from the more average coaches. I've often heard of exceptional executive coaches described in the industry as artisans of their craft. Now, I know this sounds a bit wanky, but it's probably a very apt description. Exceptional executive coaches are exceptional, perhaps not necessarily in terms of what they do, given that most coaches these days subscribe to the same theoretical models. Rather, what makes exceptional coaches exceptional is how they do their business, how they do things. For instance, many executive coaches, even some of the better ones, are happy to tackle surface issues, but may be reluctant to raise the coachee's discomfort levels. As a coach, it's easy to confuse wanting to make the executive feel good with getting the right outcomes from the coaching process. I guess it's human nature, it's kind of hardwired into us. In contrast, the more exceptional, gifted coaches become alert to pressure points quite early on in the assignment, and they'll use, sensitivity and respect to take their coachees to those difficult places that the coachee may not want to go, but they'll take them there regardless. And they're unlikely to be fazed by the coachee feeling uncomfortable. They can handle coachee pushback and resistance. They can manage tension and anxiety, even when the way forward may not always seem clear to them. In fact, the really exceptional coaches operating at this level can sit comfortably with ambiguity. Many inexperienced executive coaches, or coaches starting off, for instance, tend to be bound, in contrast, by proprietary methodologies and almost coached by the numbers, very rigid sort of approach. They routinely follow this methodology, irrespective of what the coaching assignment involves. They dish out some homework to the coachee after every session, and they gauge the effectiveness of their program by the degree to which the homework is completed. Now, the better coaches, on the other hand, tend to penetrate far beneath the surface of an issue. The questions they ask tend to be different. They tend to want to talk about the more important issues. Their relationship with their coachee tends to be deeper, yet they stay true to the coaching process all through, by encouraging the coachee to take personal responsibility for whatever change is being explored. The really exceptional coaches almost never advise. This is an important distinction. In most cases, exceptional coaches tend to be humble, they're ego-free, and are characterised by the flexibility of their approach, particularly their ability to stay focused while in the moment. They tend to build stronger relationships with their coachees, yet they're very adept at maintaining professional separation and maintaining boundaries. And I seem to have this knack, the special knack of being able to get to the nub of an issue really, really quickly. Another distinguishing feature of the exceptional coaches in the industry is their unflinching focus on the coachee's needs versus perhaps their own personal or business development needs. The better coaches will pull the plug on a coaching assignment if they believe they're not getting the right sort of traction along the way, or if they feel they're not being as personally effective as the situation may require. The really exceptional coaches will also strive hard to avoid building coach dependency with their coachees. I'll talk about coach dependency in another video, so I won't dwell on it too much here. So we've talked about exceptional coaches. Where do you find these people? Well, given the unregulated and fragmented nature of the executive coaching industry, particularly in Australia, finding really great executive coaches these days is still largely through trial and error, unfortunately. Most organisations, even the large users of coaching services, tend to find coaches through referral and personal networks. Many mid-market organisations tend to source executive coaches who have come out of their own particular industry, but you need to be a bit careful here. While industry-specific experience can be a real tonic in a coaching relationship, you need to be careful not to mistake industry experience for coaching expertise. Ultimately, if you're looking for executive coaches, you need to survey the field, identify a shortlist by using your networks and any other referral service you can access. But in terms of the selection process, you could use the Standards Australia Handbook question guide to help refine your interview question set. And many of the larger organisations establish coaching panels, assessment centres and other formal interview processes to help refine the selection process along the way. But at the end of the day, there's still a bit of hit and miss approach to coach selection these days. And once you've made a selection, my advice would be try the coach out in a relatively safe area of the organisation where they can do minimal damage and evaluate their performance over time. If they do a great job, gradually increase their workload. In the next video, I'm going to be discussing how to recognise and how to handle challenging coaching assignments, particularly where the coachee may display behavioural and emotional problems that fall just shy of diagnosable pathology. Again, thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you at the next one.